I wasn't going to make a video today, but I was reading through some articles this afternoon, and one or two stuck out to me, and they really pissed me off, and they scared me. So, they have to do with President Barack Obama on CNN, and he made this one statement that scared me. So, before I really get into it, I would just like to say it's not because he's a Democratic president, and it's definitely not because he's a black president. If any president, or any person for that matter, man, woman, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, said this and was the president of the United States, I would be scared. So let's just get into this. This is what he said. Congress doesn't have a whole lot of core responsibilities. One core responsibility is passing a budget, which they have not done yet. The other core responsibility, that they've got to pay the bills that they've already accrued. This is the President of the United States saying that Congress does not have many core responsibilities. So I took the liberty of digging up this old document, the Constitution of the United States, and I took the liberty of also highlighting all the core responsibilities of Congress. This can be found in Article 1, Section 8. And then I also looked at the core responsibilities, or powers, you can say it that way too, of the executive branch. That can be found in Article 2, Section 2. Right there. And then there's a little on the back as well. Those are his powers. So when the president says that Congress doesn't have a whole lot of core responsibilities, it scares me because that makes me think that he believes that he actually does have a lot of core responsibilities compared to them. When in fact, in the United States system of checks and balances, Congress kind of has the most responsibility, but all the three branches, the judicial, the executive, and the legislative, all keep checking each other, so none of them can get too powerful. So that scares me. But let's continue. What really kind of just pisses me off. So in this same interview, Obama went on to say, in response to the question, how much of the lack of action in Washington is due to your fault? And Obama replied, ultimately, the buck stops with me. He wanted to say, I get frustrated, and I've said before, and I continue to say, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get Congress, and Republicans in Congress, in particular, to think less about politics and party, and think more about what's good for the country. So this is basically what he said in this one sentence. Ultimately, the buck stops with me, but it's the Republicans' fault in Congress. So I'm responsible. Ultimately, it's my responsibility. I take all the blame for it. But it's Republicans in Congress that are really to blame for this. And if they cared more about what's good for the country and less about politics and party, then we could get something done. But in that, he's kind of playing politics, isn't he? If he's pointing the finger and saying, it's the Republicans' fault, they've got to stop playing to the political party. When in fact, he's playing to his own political party if he's blaming it on the Republicans. It's kind of hypocritical. Also, that's just one thing. Let's continue. This is exciting. Obama's on a 2-day bus tour, and he's making speeches all over the country by New York and stuff, and this is what he said. We do not have an urgent deficit crisis. The only crisis we have is the one that is manufactured in Washington. He wanted to say that, let's see if I can get this quote here. Where is it? Here it is. As the economy has improved, the deficit is going down. It has now dropped at the fastest rate in 60 years. I want to repeat that. That it's dropped that. The deficit has been cut in half since 2009 and is on a downward trajectory and is going down faster than any time since World War II. So Obama is saying pretty much that under my administration, the deficit spending for this year is the lowest that it's ever been, that is the truth. He is saying the truth right there. The problem is that it's due to sequestration. Now, what is sequestration, do you ask? Well, in 2011, the summer of 2011, there was a debt ceiling debate going on in Washington, and we were trying to figure out how that we can cut spending pretty much. That's how it was. Either raise taxes or cut spending. That was basically the idea. So Obama proposed that we use sequestration, which was basically an incentive to figure out a compromise. So what they did is they said, we're going to create something where if we don't decide on what to cut, automatically there's going to be cuts to defense spending. They knew that no one was going to want to have cuts to defense spending, so they thought it would provide an incentive to make a compromise. The problem was, this bill was signed into law August 2nd of 2011 by President Barack Obama, and as time passed, there was no compromise. No decisions were being made. Republicans put forth let's see if I can find it. They put forth the Budget Control Act, which basically made a lot of cuts to entitlement programs, food stamps, welfare, and all that stuff. That passed by a slim majority in the House, by like 15 votes. In the House, it did not pass in the Democratically controlled Senate. The Democrats put forth a plan that basically raised taxes on the higher income, which nobody wanted. It didn't pass. So no one was making any compromise. So eventually sequestration took into effect, and cuts to a lot of stuff were done. Now, this would be all fine and dandy, but the problem is that Obama didn't want to take credit for this, because all of a sudden his idea of sequestration is turning bad, and it's going to make cuts that nobody wanted. So he tried to back away from that, but in the end they found out it was him. So this is the problem, the hypocrisy of this whole thing, and this is what really pisses me off. But in the end, you can't have the cake and eat it too. President Barack Obama, you cannot say that if the buck falls on me, but it's the Republicans in Congress that are making this gridlock and not being able to get anything done. It's their fault, but in the end, the buck falls on me. And you can't say that the deficit spending has been reduced in your administration when, in fact, you didn't even want to take credit for that in the first place. You didn't want anything to do with sequestration, but all of a sudden, now that now that the deficit is down and people don't really care about those cuts anymore, all of a sudden you're taking credit for it, even though you tried your hardest to get out of that. You can't have your cake and eat it too.